Okay, okay. Since what is happening with the UAPs? There is a lot of things. No, United States declassifies videos and documents, admits that some sightings cannot be explained, shut down strange object on the North American soil, and at the same time you resurrect from the hand of the science the UFO phenomenon. UAP seems as an organized plan. No, of course it seems.
Right. No, there is a trend, and I hope that what I'm doing helps promote that cause, because we built an observatory at Harvard University under the Galileo project that I lead, and it looks at the entire sky all the time using infrared and optical cameras, and also radio sensors and audio sensors, and we are analyzing what we see in the sky with machine learning software, and trying to figure out if everything we see is either natural, like birds, or human-made, like balloons, drones, airplanes, or maybe there is something else. So we are trying to bring this to the realm of science, this subject, because we are calibrating our instruments, we have full control over them, and then we are doing a systematic study of the sky. It's not anecdotal. It's not by chance happening to be at the right place at the right time, like the reports from military personnel. And at the same time, at the US House of Representatives, there were 3 people who provided testimonies. 2 of them were pilots, reporting about experiences from the past. And the third one was David Grush, who worked within a government with a high security clearance, and he claims that he spoke with 40 people who told him about retrieval and reverse engineering programs of alien spacecraft that the US government has in its possession, or it gave to some corporations, we don't know. And the good news is that he did not witness the evidence, but he knows the people that are potentially involved in these programs, and he provided those contact details to Congress people, and they will presumably go to investigate whether indeed there is something that was hidden from the public. So hopefully within months or maybe a year, we should know if this story was fabricated or is real. And of course, if the government is in possession of interstellar objects that came to Earth from far away, it's nothing to do with national security, because they don't care how we split the land on this Earth. It has to be data that is shared with scientists. The way science works, by open data, knowledge that is shared by all humans. So my hope is that we will get to that point if indeed the US government has those materials. But we don't know it for sure, because Rush did not have first-hand experience. He just heard people talking about it.
Yes, but we need something concrete, proofs, not more testimonials.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. It should be based on evidence and not on what people say, because very often people give conflicting reports about the same event. For example, a car accident. People involved are saying different things. Even in sports now, in the World Cup of women's soccer, they used video cameras to figure out whether there was a goal or not a goal, and they did not ask the players or the audience to tell them, because people have ulterior motives, and they are fooled sometimes by not seeing the entire evidence. And so the key is to use instruments like video cameras that have no personality, they don't have wishful thinking. And so the same is true in science, of course. And what we need is to use instruments to provide us with the data, unless the government is willing to share that. The government is the first organization to notice unusual things in the sky, because they monitor the sky all the time for national security reasons. whereas astronomers are looking at a small portion of the sky at very distant objects, so they might miss something flying overhead.
And what is your personal opinion? Do you think that the US government really hiding something? Or?
It's possible if they gave the materials to corporations that study them. The corporations are getting paid, and therefore they would never resolve the issue. It's just like a psychiatrist helping a patient. You don't want to resolve the problem of the patient because otherwise you will not get paid after that. So the same is true in the relationship between government and corporations, and they want to make a profit. However, science is not for profit. So if there is anything, my hope is that it will be shared with scientists. So then it will be open to the public. Then we can get to the bottom of it, resolve what it means and the implications to society. And I don't think it makes any sense for government to hold it secret, because the situation is similar to you living in a family that is isolated and going out to your backyard and suddenly recognizing a tennis ball that was thrown by a neighbor. So the question is, would you tell your family that you are not alone, that there is a neighbor out there, or will you keep it secret? And obviously you want to tell your family because they might decide to close the curtains on the windows for privacy reasons, or they might decide to engage with the neighbors to learn more about them, or one day the neighbor will knock on your door, or the neighbor has many ways of affecting your family. So it's better to be aware of the reality that you live in and let your family know about it so that they can adapt to it. And for the government to hold it secret makes very little sense, in my opinion, but it's also possible that they don't have anything. So we have to wait until the evidence is shown, and until then we should hesitate to believe it.
Okay, you proposed that the possible existence of extraterrestrial ships in the solar system should be investigated at the same level as other scientific mysteries, no? The budget,
definitely.
Techniques, yes.
Yeah, the public cares a lot about the question, are we alone? Are there any technological objects from other civilizations near Earth? And we now have the capability of detecting those objects. That's why we found them, interstellar objects, over the past decade. So I think it's our duty to study this as part of the mainstream of science, because the public cares a lot about it. The public pays for science through taxes. And for example, billions of dollars were spent on the search for dark matter. We don't know what 83% of the matter in the universe is. We call it dark matter. We've never witnessed it in the solar system. And frankly, it will not have a big impact if we figure it out. If we know the type of particle that the universe is filled with, it will not have much impact on human lives because we interact with that dark matter. However, the question of whether we have a neighbor and whether there are technological gadgets in our backyard, that's a question that will have a huge impact on humanity, on the future of humanity. And since we have the ability to address it, it doesn't make any sense to ignore that question. And that's the situation right now within academia. I'm trying to change it. And I think it's out of respect, first of all, to the military personnel who are reporting about things they don't understand. Also, as a result of the fact that the first two interstellar objects that we discovered, the meteor and Oumuamua, looked so different from rocks that we are familiar with. So that intrigues me, and I think more funds have to be allocated. If billions of dollars are dedicated to the search for technological objects near Earth, and in 40 years we will not find anything, we will be exactly at the same point as dark matter searches are right now, as part of the mainstream of science. So when people say extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, I say that extraordinary evidence requires extraordinary funding. You have to fund the search. And unfortunately, the people who say this statement, they don't seek any evidence. They just have a prejudice. They believe in some ideas but are not willing to test them experimentally. And I'm trying to demonstrate through, for example, the expedition to the Pacific Ocean, that you can take some risk and engage in a big effort and eventually be successful at finding something.
The last question. What do you think about the fact that a large part of the scientific community has clearly turned against you and your theories?
I think it's very unfortunate because it suppresses innovation in science, and the biggest impact is not so much on me, because I'm already senior, I'm tenured, I served in important positions like the chair of the astronomy department at Harvard for 9 years, almost a decade, and I chaired the board on physics and astronomy of the national academies in the United States. I was director of the Black Hole Initiative. I founded it, the founding director, and I am currently the director of the Institute for Theory and Computation at Harvard, and also the chair of the advisory board for the Starshot project to visit the nearest star. So I'm, in a way, I don't really care about what other people say. I'm just trying to do the right thing. But the biggest damage is in the minds of young people who see the way that innovation is treated within academia, and as a result, they might not take any chances. They will not innovate because that could affect their future careers, the job prospects, and that is a very bad message to send.
Yeah.
With respect to the personal attacks, I take the approach of an eagle. An eagle has very often a crow on his back. A crow is the only bird that can ride on the eagle's back and peck on its neck. And instead of fighting the crow and pushing it off, the eagle just rises to greater heights where there is less oxygen and the crow just drops off. And so for me, the greatest heights that I can go to are the heights of doing science properly, meaning collecting evidence, analyzing it in the best way, for example, the spherules from the expedition, and analyzing them with the best mass spectrometers in the world. And my hope is that once I do the science to the best of my ability, all these critics, naysayers, just like crows, will drop off my back and stop pecking at my neck. It was really amusing because when I came back from the Pacific Ocean, there was a scientific paper published in the Astrophysical Journal saying that the government data about this meteor must be wrong because they cannot fit the data with a model for stones. And I call that the Stone Age of science, where everything in the sky must be stones. And if the data doesn't fit the model for stones, the data must be wrong. Now, the data was collected by the US Space Command, which gets more money than NASA. And they checked the data and confirmed it in an official letter to NASA that this object is interstellar at 99.99%. And so, I went, found it there, and I know that it's not stone. I know that it's made mostly of iron. And to see this response from some of my colleagues is, in a way, sad because they are not allowing themselves to learn something new. The only way for you to learn something new is if you give up on models that are based on past knowledge. You give up on the idea that everything in the sky must be stones. We already know that's not true because we know that dark matter exists. It's not made of stones. Perhaps those astronomers didn't hear about it, but they still want to fit any data they have with stony material. And that's unfortunate because in my paper that hopefully will come out soon, within a couple of weeks, you will see what this object was probably made of. And it's not stones.